Bad Movie Crew. Bad Movie Crew.
And we are back with another edition of the Bad Movie Crew. I'm your host, Neil, joined as always by my brother from another mother, and your host, Mark.
Tuki.
We are the BMC. So, as we would have mentioned in other recent videos, we're doing a bit of different content. We're just having an overarching dialogue on the state of various aspects of film, movie, media, and all of the like. So, you know, as Mark would tell you, like, comment, share, subscribe, do all them nice internet etiquette things. Be conscientious in the comment section and let me have a discussion about it. So, my brother, what we talking about today on this episode of the Bad Movie Crew?
We are talking about the fall of Star Wars.
So it's come to this now.
I will say I'm looking forward to this episode. I am.
This is your... It's that time, huh?
First video, wet the people, wet your toe. Second episode, you're up to your knee. Right now, stick your head in the water and let me go down this road. We are falling. We're talking about the fall.
Not of Skywalker. Not the rise or fall of Skywalker, but the franchise
of Star Wars.
A whole.
Yes. You want to take it, sir? You want it?
But no, I can ease into it now because let's have a structure to this thing, not just go off the rails. Because I will go off the rails.
Of course, it's Star Wars.
So the state of Star Wars. So everybody knows about Star Wars at this point. Star Wars is a series that would have started in the 70s. George Lucas, he took a chance on himself, did it independently, and it turned into a multi-billion-dollar franchise now owned by Disney. Bought it a few years ago for X amount of billions of dollars, and now they've been milking the wazoo out of it. And when I say milk, I mean just like how he was milking that green milk out of that big. Anyhow, so we have the main storyline of Star Wars, or the main franchise, the main movie franchise, which is episode. It started with 4, 5, 6. Then it went to the prequels and then starting in the late 90s into 2000s, 1, 2, 3. And then for some reason after Disney bought, well, not some reason, I know the reason, we know the reason. Cha-ching! Disney decided to release 7, 8, 9. And those were terrible. And then it went into the TV properties, the TV shows and stuff, which had, they're having
some
success. Yeah, some success, right?
Yeah. Some series are having some success.
Right. So if we talk about the fall, we got to talk about the rights. No.
Correct. Not the Rise of Skywalker.
Not the Rise of, no, sir. Hell no. Let's start with the original trilogy, which is episode 4, known as A New Hope, episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, episode 6.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. I don't know how deep into this thing we can go, but we don't want to be spoiling anything for you if you've never watched any of these movies. So, spoiler alert. Spoiler warning. Right. No, Mark.
Sir.
Really quickly, because we don't want to get to reminiscing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Star Wars, the original trilogy, your introduction to Star Wars, etc.?
I love them. I will say when I was about 8, 9, 10, I had a videotape, VHS. Years.
Lots of people watching this saying, VHS, boy. Woo. This is ancient technology.
I had both movies on it. So if I put in that tape, that's at least a good 6 hours done up and watching.
Okay.
Growing up, I never understood why it was episode 4 or 5. I was figuring that I asked where it was 1, 2, and 3. Tell me up. The man never met it. I was like,
facts. I thought.
I mean, we all learned to cope.
Your appearance, you start reading Middle East story. The same sense. What happened?
How we get here?
Yeah.
And truthfully, the start of episode 4 is a space battle. So like as a little
straight
child,
off the bat.
Just you got your little intro. What's going on?
Yeah.
The script going up. And next minute, blast the fire, and you're like, how we get here?
And then immediately outstep Darth Vader. What's
going on here? So then, as a child growing up, it is probably the greatest thing you've ever seen. And it took me years to watch episode 6 because I couldn't find it anywhere. I could not find it anywhere.
For those
But-
of you that don't know, this is pre-internet era. Don't make it seem like it's accessible today. Like you
Yeah.
had to find the video shop that carried the movie, and it was
Correct.
installed, and then you could rent it, and
Correct.
it was a whole
Yeah,
archaic system of watching
Correct.
movies.
correct. LeBron internet didn't invent yet, so so it took me a while to watch episode 6. But the original trilogy, there are some things in hindsight when you grow up that you look at it and say, well, all of this
Yeah.
is fucking avoided. But
Yeah.
I love it because that's how I feel about it. I love it because it's something from your childhood, and it's actually one of the fonder memories you have. Like I said, the first thing you see after the script and the introduction and the title is
War.
2 ships is war. Like, are you in space? So that is something that will always capture a child's imagination. So yeah, I refuse to say anything bad about it.
Right. So I agree with you completely. For me, I'll be honest and say I remember watching episode 4, New Hope, and I didn't like it. I remember from the beginning, the opening scene was amazing,
Mhm.
right? Like the whole battle and thing. You got this small little ship being fought by a huge Star Destroyer, and the music, and you could see who the bad guys were immediately, and they didn't. It
Yeah.
felt like it was a lot of setup for establishing who was what and why,
Correct.
right?
Mhm.
But to me, it was slow. It was a slow pace. It was a slow burn. But then they had the special effects version or whatever, and you're dealing with special effects of that time, so
Mhm.
it was rough. It was a rough goings on.
Yeah, not better, but
And then I watched Empire Strikes Back, and I was like, there it is. And that is where my love of Darth Vader started. Who know me know that I love Darth. I love Darth Vader is the greatest villain of all time. I don't care. You can say the Thanos. And it's subjective. I ain't saying that this is an all-time thing. You ain't got to write it in stone. But for Neil Hoyt, my ringtone has been Imperial March from the time phones had ringtones. When you could download ringtones,
I
it has
can
been
I can attest to that.
right? It's
I gotta
been
attest to
Darth Vader. The only reason I changed my wallpaper on my phone from Darth Vader is because I had a son. So I just saying, right? Darth Vader means a lot to me, right?
Mhm.
What I will say is the reason why it means so much to me is because one, Darth Vader was always very mysterious. He was imposing. The breathing was creepy. The force magic was,
James Earl knocked it out the
with
park with the
voice. And then you had his ties to like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and
Mhm.
he seems to be well known and feared in the universe. And then the revelation in in episode 5 where he's Luke's father, then it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? So it's
Wait.
like,
Which now when you watch over again, there was a lot of foreshadowing.
yes,
Yeah.
but again,
You're watching that as a little child.
right. But for me, Star Wars started to get really good in the sequels, 4 and 5. I mean, sorry, not 4 and 5, 5 and 6, 5 and
Mhm.
6, right? They started to get really good then.
I'm not really a fan of 6 though.
I like 6. The reason why I like 6 is because, again, that's another one that starts off slow. Well, no, it starts off slow, but then it escalates and it
Mhm.
culminates with the destruction of the bad guys and the redemption of Darth Vader. And to
Yeah.
me, I love it because there's the tempting from Luke to the dark side, and there's a moment there you saying, really won't he? And then the resolution to say, yo, I was like through and through, and I am gonna save my father, kind of stuff. And then to me, the greatest part or one of the greatest moments in the original trilogy, or probably in the entire franchise, is when he looks over at Palpatine, kicking the dust off of Luke, and he
Worse
said,
than you ask.
right, and he's like, yeah, there's my father door. I mean, there's my son door. There's my son. So it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
So there's always been a love I had for it. I mean, there are some quirky moments in it. Certain parts are a little annoying and unnecessary, but at the end of the day, I love it because it wraps up what I thought was an original story.
For me,
Very nice.
I think it's the weakest one in the trilogy. For me.
In the original trilogy.
Yeah, in the original trilogy, I have it 5, 4, 6. That's 5, me.
4, 6.
I got 5, 4, 6 because like you, from the time you said that you didn't particularly like episode 4, I knew he was going to talk about pacing. I knew that.
But the reason why because again,
you had to
kind of-
introduce a
Exactly.
lot of stuff. So
Right. It's almost like you had to start. You're continuing a story that we don't know, but then you're
Correct.
introducing characters. So
Exactly.
like right now, if you watch all of them, if you watch all of the trilogy in chronological order,
Yeah.
for a lot of setup in 4 don't make sense,
Correct.
right? Because you know who these characters are,
By the time you get to 4.
right?
Mhm.
And that's the only thing that works against it, but it is what it is. I don't want to spend too much time reminiscing.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I have no problem with you having 4, 5, 4, 6. That's fine. Once 5 first.
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back is the action.
Yeah, it is.
It is the best movie out of all of them. And they talking about trilogy, prequel,
yeah.
sequel, all.
Oh, easily.
Right?
Easily.
Ain't even question,
Yeah,
right?
easily.
Anyhow, that
Mhm.
is the rise of Star Wars. Now, obviously, over the years, people were clamoring for more Star Wars. George Lucas decided as technology got better, he was going to do the prequel trilogy. And the
Mhm.
prequel trilogy at that time was very hated because there were some design decisions, some character implementation decisions, and certain, dare I say, terrible writing. No, sorry, not terrible writing, terrible dialogue. Terrible writing of dialogue
Mhm.
that made us cringe a bit in the prequel movies, but everybody kind of felt what,
All right, we can get to that.
right?
We get to that.
Right. Don't forget it though. Don't forget
We
it.
get no. I going back to you're saying number 5 is the best, but go ahead.
We're better than number 5. You gonna tell me 3, right?
Yeah, of course.
You gonna tell me episode 3, right?
Of course.
I know you was gonna say that. I know you was gonna say that, right? I know. No, we can address that. We can address that, right?
We get
'Cause
it.
trust me.
We get it.
I was there and thereabouts with you, but I said no. After watching 5 again a few more times, like,
We get it.
oh, bleh, it is the Empire.
Uh,
Anyhow, the prequel trilogy, right?
mhm.
That is where it started to be like, do we really want the story to continue? Do we really want more Star Wars? But they did a very good job of wrapping up the prequel trilogy and sending us into 4.
Yes.
There was no Rogue Nation at the time, but it did a very good job of setting up 4.
correct.
Right? Everybody was where they were supposed to be, albeit some of it felt a bit rushed. But
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day, everybody was where they were supposed to be. The problem is now when you do a prequel over an original, which was supposed to be the sequel, you got certain confusing statements like when Leia says, I remember my mother, she was very caring and loving. And then when you see the prequel, she had her for all of 10 seconds and then dead. We love it. We love it.
Yeah.
So the prequel trilogy.
Let me not start. Anyhow,
No. Don't plot hole. We do a separate episode on plot holes.
there we go.
But
Mhm.
after the prequel trilogy, we had things like the Clone Wars to extend the universe, and
Yeah.
we had video games, Force Unleashed, which I loved but hated at the same time because it made that protagonist in those video games a major player in the use of the Force.
Mhm.
And he is not mentioned anywhere.
any movies.
It's almost
No.
like they made this property to make money. It's not canonical.
Mhm.
He's nowhere, anywhere in any of the other. He's not made any mention really anywhere other than the video games. But he was so powerful. It's like nobody don't remember Starkiller. Like this man was a bad man, right?
Correct.
Anyhow, so we had Clone Wars. We had various movies and various TV,
Yeah.
stuff that was really good, right? And then they bought over by Disney. We had, I think, I can't remember if we had we just had TV shows, just TV shows. And
Yeah.
then we had the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy started out all right. To me, the sequel trilogy was 7. It started out by saying, you know what? Remember this? Remember us? And I was like, the hey big head. Hey big head. How you doing? Remember Star Wars? How you doing,
Yeah.
babe? Right? And you're like, yeah, cool. I remember, like, beat for beat, you could say it's almost like
It's episode 4.
4, right?
It's episode 4.
But we allowed it. We allowed the nostalgia, and we were okay with the introduction of characters and stuff like that. I know at the end, a lot of people had a problem with her, Rey,
Yeah.
taking up a lightsaber and looking to beat the big bad, which is Kylo Ren, almost staying toe to toe and holding her own, right?
Correct.
I could see that being a problem. At the time, it didn't have a big problem with me because I thought that would have either been explained or kind of taken down a notch as a adrenaline fluke or just the flow of the power.
You silly child.
But then he may release episode 8, The Last Jedi. God bless. If you want to watch a bad Star Wars movie, start with episode 8. Episode 8 is bad from beginning to end. as a matter of fact, right, there are very few movies I remember. There are very few movies that the only thing I remember is the bad in the movies. I can only name one part in episode 8 that was great.
That's
Maybe
what-
two.
That's
Actually,
that's,
two. Two
that's
parts.
at the end where he forced Ghost.
No,
You didn't like that?
I liked it in the moment, but after rewatching that shite,
Not saying that I like it, but I figured
No,
out
no,
one. Was
that
there
shite,
two?
that shite. My two is when the woman goes through the like speed thing through the
The shit.
to the destroyer,
Oh, yeah.
and the other one is the Kylo Ren and Rey fighting the.
Oh,
like,
yes.
After they kill
Snoke.
Snoke.
Lord
When
of
they-
mercy.
yeah,
that was glorious.
Yeah, that was glorious. That was amazing, right? I rate that.
That was
but-
glorious.
But the visuals of the end fight with Kylo Ren and Luke
Mhm.
was good. But when you really sit back and you think about it, you're like, well, they really fucked over Luke Skywalker in this sequel trilogy. They really took Luke. Now I understand you don't want to make him a prominent figure to overshadow the youngins, passing the baton and all of that. But it almost made him like a caricature of
Again, as we said, at all of our other episodes since we've been back, left out the walk shape. But we keep going.
I don't even think, honestly, Mark,
Oh, you see,
I don't think it's woke. I honestly don't think it's wokeism. I think that is just cause Ryan Johnson. Let me call a thing. Ryan Johnson put all 20 inches of his penis in this movie, you know.
but again,
He
okay.
really
But the reason I say that, right, is because there's a lot of behind the scene politics that was going on. So how you see how you had George Lucas did the original trilogy.
right.
He had a hand.
He didn't direct them, but
He had a hand in the prequel trilogy.
mhm.
Disney bought over, and from there was a definitive push to make the Force female,
and that's fine. You
and
know
that's
what?
fine. But again, like the part that pissed me off the most in Episode 8, Luke Skywalker went against his father, which at the time he was the biggest, baddest, meanest son of a bitch outside of the Emperor that the world has ever seen. And
Alex,
he resisted the urge to fight him because he said, I can still feel the good in you. You're a father, you're my father, you're a Jedi, yada, 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 yada.
Mhm.
You mean to tell me Luke, who through various books and other iterations of Star Wars is probably the most powerful Force user ever, looks at his nephew as a child and says, I sense this darkness. I can ring a chop in you. How the fuck you gonna how no how the
But
fuck
that's
you
it. But hold on,
Oh,
I would
how
chop
are
my
you-
hold on.
how
I
are
would
you
chop my
going-
nephew before my father. I just saying. I just kidding. No, just kidding.
how you going to family dinner after that? Yeah, Leah, so but you know,
Man,
you
look,
sound
that's-
you sound
like, a slip. You know how it is. It turn on. I don't know. And all these things,
Like-
my made.
like,
I don't know.
at that point, right there and then, I was like, nah, this movie's cut.
I would say that.
This movie's cut.
So I don't want to address that first. Well, that moment was. I don't know, man. It's like you know, for me, you saw certain things in these movies, in these sequel movies, and it's like, what was the story you're trying to tell here? I think that's
Another
my-
problem. Another
that's my-
problem was, as I was getting into before. Sorry. For the first 6 movies, George Lucas was a very prominent figure in how the story is going to be told. Each of the sequel trilogies had a new director for every episode.
and that's fine. That's how it was in previous. Like, let me see. I can pull it up. But in the original trilogy, I think New Hope had George.
But what I'm saying is George was at the end of the day, whether George was there with a particular path to go. With the backlash from Episode 8, because I can be very honest, I actually thought Rey was going to turn out to be the big bad, because
Rey?
there's that thing, that scene where she's in the cave and she sees the evil version of herself.
Mhm.
I was like, all right, so she can be the big bad. Like, let she be the big bad. But again, there was so much backlash that they had to course correct in episode 9. And it was the worst thing.
No, but here on. Let me be talking things, right? They want me rant, I can rant, right? My problem with the direction Star Wars took, I don't have a problem with different directors. Shoot, the original trilogy had George Lucas and two other different directors in each of the movie, Irvin somebody and Richard somebody, can't remember. But they did each, everybody had a turn. I don't have a problem. But as you said, George Lucas there was a common theme, there was a thread, there was a through line to the story, right?
Mhm.
There was a story to be told, hard or soft, and they went for it. They went through it, hard or soft, that's where they bring it. Cool. The prequel trilogies was all George. I think it was all George.
Yeah.
Right. So in the prequel trilogy, George Lucas did all three,
Mhm.
right? So you had, the first one was done with a common thread with different directors. So different takes, different visions, different ways of telling the story that is the holy grail. Anybody that knows anything about film or narrative, the most important part is the idea, the story that you want told, right? So that's why the original series holds up so well. Then George took it. There was a common story, but he couldn't write dialogue for crap, which is fine, no problem. He made some terrible decisions with CGI. He relied too heavily on it, but by and large, it wrapped up a story and it got us to where we needed to be for New Hope.
Mhm.
The problem with the sequel trilogy is that they had started with one, J.J. Abrams.
Mhm.
They went to Rian Johnson, and it felt like there was no story to be told over 3 episodes. And it was like, this is what we want. We want this character to do X or be this or be that or do the next. Rian Johnson came in and said, okay. Maybe he was given a story. Maybe he was given a latitude to do what he wanted with the story. But the point remains is that the reason why Rise of Skywalker exists, which in my opinion was the worst Star Wars movie, that's 1A and 1B with the Last Jedi. But the reason why those two movies are terrible is because of the Last Jedi. The Last Jedi did so many things to subvert everything that came before it. Not only episode 7, but all of the other Star Wars. Like, you're talking literally 40 years of Star Wars lore, Star Wars canon, video games, movies, books, TV shows. They did all of that to subvert all of that. For why? Because to me, you could have to me, if they told a narrative with Rey, I saw how they could tell a narrative with Rey, a female Jedi user, and made her I could have seen that trajectory.
Mhm.
Right? It would have made sense. I ain't saying I wanted the story, because we got a good friend of ours, Govan. He always says, the problem is people put their expectations of what they would have done into a movie where other people did it, and that's fine. That, to me, I agree with him to a point, but I also think that that's part of it. But the problem is that there was so much coming before it that they literally ruined it, I feel, almost single-handedly with one movie, right? Because they took Leia and not only gave her force powers, but they forced in within a couple of minutes that she was a very capable force user. And while you would expect if Luke had Jedi powers, you would think that
Leia would have it.
his twin sister would have it, and that's fine. And I understand they may not have had the thought to make her, be a
Mhm.
force user, but it was too rushed. I felt like the reason why all the other stories did well and all the other, because they took their time. When you look at the training of Luke, shoot, even in episode 4 that felt rushed, but still he had to go to Dagobah in episode 5, and then you saw it continue in episode 6. You say, okay, we could see an
progression.
arc. We could see an arc
Mhm.
of his. In the prequel trilogy, Anakin, that was a defining arc, and that was further expounded upon with the the cartoon series, etc. Right?
Mhm.
But the problem is when you have episode 7, which feels like a standalone movie to episode 8, where they did the typical Disney thing where they put jokes and made light of everything and subvert expectations. Why? Why were you subverting expectations? Like, you leave people on a cliffhanger with the lightsaber from Luke's lightsaber,
Mm-hmm.
right? Beginning of the episode, he throws it away. He disconnected from the Force. He ain't caring nothing but the Force. But they did it in such a way where it was so. Because I had no problem with him being disconnected with the Force. I had no problem with him saying, "Yeah, sit out there, that's too big for me." But they made it as if the Force, get from over here with that. That foolishness. No, I done with that. And that's a problem. If they had gone to him and said, "Yeah, because of something mysterious that happened in my past, I just ain't dealing with the Force no more." Right? To me, the Force is there, but the Force is, maybe even if he was feeling a bit apathetic to the Force or skeptical of the Force, saying, "Well, the Force, is." But they made it such as, yeah, he done with the Force. They here milking
Whatever.
doing whatever, right? So it's like, that's red flag number one. Number two, they brought in a lot of characters, which is fine. I don't mind you bringing in extra characters, but then you have them as comic relief and you make them do things that don't make sense. And then, shoot, what pissed me off, I think, with the fall of Star Wars is that they did not stick to their guns. If you had said in episode 8 or episode 9, you know what? We did The Last Jedi, and that's what it is. Leia got Force powers. Finn and the woman, they can start a romantic relationship. Paul kind of now got to get accustomed to his leadership role. And if they were saying, you know what, we made mistakes with The Last Jedi, but going into Rise of Skywalker, that is what it is, then fine. But it felt like such a 180. It felt like such a departure from what was established in the last movie. The thing is, I don't think people necessarily, I know people had a problem with the narrative or the story being told in it, but I think people had a bigger problem with this whole, it felt like an anthology. I think that's the best way to say it. It felt like 7, 8, and 9 were 3 different films. They felt like 3 different narratives. Like, yeah, Finn is here, but it's like Finn cameoing in episode 8 and 9. Oh, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think, and the TV series after that, like the Mandalorian, and now they got Ahsoka, Bad Batch on them. That's fine. I appreciate that, and it seems like, and it's sad because you literally have to find stories in such a lore-rich universe. You got to find obscure characters and obscure like plot lines and obscure situations, and you got to kind of make up certain things to tell great stories. But in the main Star Wars, where you got things like the Force and like sabers and badassery and villains that are great, right? You kind of drop the bag. And the sad reality is that the unfortunate thing is Star Wars, they could put anything in Star Wars in theaters and people will go in droves to see it because they're hoping to recapture that episode 4, 5, and 6 from back in the day. And that's sad because when Rise of Skywalker did so well, box office wise, trust and believe the only reason, Rise of Skywalker, that make a billion. Don't it tell you? It did the worst out of the sequel trilogy, but it still crossed $1 billion. So the point you're trying to make is that even though it had a dip, the dip was to $1 billion still. So that would give incentives to people that are not in tune with the source material, or not in tune with the lore, or not in tune with, say, like, hey, Star Wars making $1 billion every time it released, so let's keep it going. You know what I mean? And that, to me, is a problem. If you make, it goes back to what you said in a previous episode that we did, right? If you make good content, you will see good results, right?
Correct.
The unfortunate thing is, or the fortunate thing, however you look at it with Star Wars, is that you literally have nearly 50 years to rely on for inspiration. For you have a blueprint of over 50 years of content, lore, everything. So you can literally see what worked or what doesn't work and adapt it to these modern times. And money will come. If they make a good Star Wars movie now, and I mean a genuinely good Star Wars movie now, it may even break the box office. It will probably rival you know, I can see a good Star Wars movie rivaling something like, the Avatars and the End Games and so on. We can talk about Avatar. We can get there. But yeah, so like for me, Star Wars is a bittersweet something. It's a sore topic for me. Mark would tell you because I love Star Wars. I love Darth Vader. I love the Force. I love lightsabers. Right now, I'm playing the Star Wars game on PlayStation 5. I love Star Wars. I love the good versus evil. It is a very straightforward-ish kind of theme,
Mhm.
ridden, theme heavy narrative. And I love that, right? Plus, it looked cool. Visuals are amazing. Story-wise, amazing. But Disney, I feel as if Disney is only caring with one, influencing minds and influencing pocketbooks, right? And there's nothing wrong influencing minds, but if you influence minds, and it's a weird thing because you influencing minds to influence pocketbooks or influencing pocketbooks, influencing minds, but you're doing it in such a way that you're talking about space wizards and little green men quite literally flipping about and killing men and blasters and the force and ghosts and
Mhm.
I don't understand why we have to be so heavy-handed with the wokeism, one, and two. I don't see why we can't tell a cohesive story. Disney, you are in the business of making franchises. The only thing we can ask is a common theme throughout the franchise. And if you start with a theme, the reason why the MCU, we talked about it in a previous episode, the reason why Phase up to the Infinity Saga, why that did so well is because by and large, almost always there was a consistent theme across all the movies that culminated with a heavy staked finale,
Mhm.
right? People lost lives, people lost things, there was a lot at stake. So there was a common theme and it ended with a tense filled, you don't know what gonna happen kind of thing finale, right? Star Wars had that. Star Wars had the ability to tell that story where there's a common theme to episode 1, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so the time period. There's a theme. There was a theme through the first trilogy, the prequel trilogy. There was a theme, hard or soft, good or bad. It was a consistency among those movies. The TV series, The Mandalorian, all of these things. There's a common theme in those self-contained stories, right? And by and large, across all of those properties before the sequel trilogy, you can say, oh, okay, I could see this is Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars. It moves like Star Wars. It feels like a Star Wars property. But the sequel movies felt as if there were only Star Wars in name.
Mhm.
There was only Star Wars, like, oh, it's like Saber, so it's Star Wars. Oh, it's a Jedi, so it gotta be Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like the narrative, the story, and as much as it says the culmination of the Skywalker name and the Skywalker brand, and they were marketing and touting it as the 9 movies are a whole story arc of the Skywalker family.
No, it's not.
It really is not.
No, it's not.
The sequel trilogy, in my opinion, has very little to do with the Skywalker family. Rey has nothing to do with Skywalker family. Ben Solo is the only link to the Skywalker brand. He went low 3 headers. So it's like, what we doing? Right? So, in my opinion, and I can answer my own question here, what you could do to fix Star Wars, tell a cohesive story. That's it. Stick to a story. Look at your other properties, Disney. You went for Phase 5, Phase 6, or whatever, when they decided to go down this theme of wokeism, when they went hard on the wokeism and then put the comedy and everything like that, subverting tense situations and everything like that. You can find your audience if you remain consistent. But do not come and tell one story, which was all nostalgia filled. Then you come and tell a story that kind of negates all that came before it, and then you try to course correct and do a completely 180. Like, to me, episode 8 feels complete. It doesn't feel like a Star Wars main movie. It feels like and the entire sequel trilogy feels like that. Like, it's an episodic kind of, like, that could be a TV show though. Like, I don't. It feels disjointed. It feels like episode 8 was filler. That's what it feels like. It was filler. Subvert expectations, or what if? I don't know, but it just feels. It doesn't feel like a main story. and just remain consistent, Disney, right? I like the fact that you decided to take a break from Star Wars main movies. Love it, because Solo didn't do so well. Rogue One was really good,
Yep.
even though it was unnecessary. We love it. That was the story we didn't ask for, but we're glad that it came.
Gave us one of the best hallway fight scenes in life.
Lord have mercy. Oh, but yes. So that's my thing. You're taking a break. Great. Just take a moment. Come up with a consistent, cohesive story with good versus bad, light versus dark, badass villain versus somebody that learning. I don't know. Shoot, retell the same story. We don't care. But once it is good, once it is something that is within what was established in the last 50 years and something that delivers on the soul and essence of Star Wars. I know I get into very vague terms, but those of you that love Star Wars and know what Star Wars is about, you know what I mean. Episode 8 did not have it, and then Episode 9 did not have it. That's just my opinion. Right.
Definitely.
So I don't know if you got any solutions to my brother or if you cool with it, but
I agree with you.
Yeah.
As I said in one of our earlier videos, take your time. Stop, pause for a minute, stick a pin, figure out the story you want to tell. I'll go with it. 4 flats down, I'll go with it.
I'll go with it, hard or soft. If you can subvert expectations in Episode 8, continue down that path. Episode 9, don't paint yourself in a corner and then decide to go back to J.J. Abrams and then all of a sudden you got to retcon or make up things you got to bring back. You bring back Palpatine for?
Because there was no other villain that they
You
there
had
was no villain.
You had 2 great villains in Episode 7. You had Snoke and you had Ben Solo. All of us knew that Kylo Ren was going to come back to the light. Who didn't know that Ben Solo wasn't going to come back to the light? It had nothing to do with Star Wars. Everybody expected Ben Solo to come back to the light. So you had 1.5 villain in Snoke, and Snoke could have been that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you and people would not have a problem if you alluded to Palpatine throughout Episode 7 and 8. Not heavy-handedly, like, he in the shadows or a post-credit scene. But like, cloning. We know cloning exists. Remind us. The last time we saw cloning was in Attack of the Clones. Episode
Rebels with,
yeah, but you understand what I mean. If you talk main story, the last time we would have heard about cloning and the whole process on Geonosis and all of that. It's not Geonosis, but you know the planet I mean, right? Yeah. We all know about that back in 2002 or whenever the release episode, 2001, right? That's 20 years. Give us a refresher episode of them. Oh, look at this here, cloning. Cloning. This is a thing. We do it. Anyhow, on with the story, and we say, okay. And they said, well, you know, the Empire was fucking with our cloning now. I said, oh, really? That's weird. I heard that was a rumor. And then you see Palpatine come up on the end and be like, oh, yeah, boy. Yeah, boy. You can see the big plan here. But you can't come and tell us that the last time we saw Palpatine was when he and the Death Star went up in smoke. And then all of a sudden he popped up like a herpes rat. Look at me here, look. I hear. No, you can't just pop up.
3 episodes, but we get new to rant.
You understand? Like,
we get new to rant.
It bothers me from a narrative standpoint, from a Star Wars narrative standpoint, that it felt. And the thing is, it's not to me. I know the easiest thing is to say it's lazy writing, but J.J. Abrams ain't had a choice. The writers ain't had a choice. The man said, "God bless Rian Johnson, fuck we in the ass here, boy. We gotta figure out saying here and fuck." But what I don't understand, right, is how on God's green earth you have a literal $1 billion franchise. You're making a movie for nearly $500 million, and Last Jedi went to print. Last Jedi went to theaters in its form. I feel as though one day Kathleen Kennedy and the producers and things was like, anyhow, let me check in with this Star Wars here. They got about 2 days left here in film. Let me see what they got here. And he said, Rian Johnson, what you do here? And he said, boy, we ain't got a choice. Boy, we don't spend 3 years recording this and filming this and doing all this. But this is what he got. So boy, we can go roll with it. But I just don't understand how are you so hands off. And the thing about it is, Kathleen Kennedy has been known to be hands-on. Too hands-on and micromanaging the whole process. But it felt like it was so hands-off. How do you tell 3 different stories essentially in one trilogy? I would feel embarrassed to know. Like, okay, you release Last Jedi. So, Last Jedi, lay an egg here, boy. We gotta figure it out. People ain't happy. People ain't happy. Yeah, the money looking good, but I say we come back strong. We double down. We say, all right, we did it. Of course we did it. And let's continue to do it. But try to make a good story out of it. No. You just say, I could see them in a meeting. The man saying, like, child boy. Last Jedi was rough. What are you gonna do here? Yes, we gotta bring back Palpatine. Fuck it. That's literally how I see it. I literally see it like that. I don't see like it was a big, I don't believe there was this from the time they were planning episode 7, it was like, we're gonna culminate with Pal. You can tell that literally they had a fire meeting, they had an emergency meeting after the response from Return of
Jedi.
Last Jedi, from Last Jedi, and the man said, boy, we gotta play back for this nostalgia. Like, we out to villains. We out to villains, so
Like, even if you still want to kill Snoke, you could have had another. Even if you kill Snoke in episode 8, you could have subvert expectations and make sure that Kylo Ren becomes the big bad.
That's very good. Like, he like double down on it.
Double down on it. Big bad.
Yeah, double
down.
I kill Snoke. I trying to get rid to the dark side.
Correct.
Come, let us rule as a diode or whatever it was. Let us rule this galaxy under what I believe is tyrannical good rule for the people, right? And then there's the good versus bad, and you say, well, she trying to turn him, he trying to turn her, and then at the end is like, sweetheart, I just ain't turning, so you ain't gonna stick, you ain't gonna kill me. Let's go at it. Let's right.
Exactly.
But no, you kill Snoke, you waffle Ben Solo. So now you gotta make up Palpatine, cause that what you do, you make up Palpatine. Man, it just was, and then you have Palpatine. Yeah, got this map to get to Palpatine, but it's a secret planet that nobody knows about. But they got breadcrumbs to get to the planet. Like, I understand, you want the planet to be a secret, or you want people to find the planet, right?
Furthermore, Palpatine should have learned that when he talked about plans just get fucked up. But he announced that he back.
Yo,
you know when Palpatine, you was Palpatine, you know when they back, when they turn up, so you planet and fire toward the shot across.
You were here? Oh no, a planet is in the thing. What it doing? Oh shoot, it powering up lasers and shooting. What about the defenses? We can't do anything. They fire two weapons and it's gonna be here in 30 seconds. Palpatine, remember me? Boom, 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 place block. That's how you know you're a bad man. But this man, right? This is why, and this is another thing that bothers me, right? Palpatine ain't learned nothing over 50 years and 200 movies of Star Wars. The man ain't learned nothing. You try to tell me you met the first Death Star. That blow up. You met the second Death Star, and what you did is you made the people feel like it wasn't operational. You lured them to the Death Star. You lured the people to the Death Star, lured the plans on how to beat it, lured that it ain't operational, that get blood, you get blood. You get bring back now. You should have come out to the cloning chamber like, yo, what happened? So boy, boy.
You get fucked up.
You get fucked up again, boy. I must say, yeah. Nah, we can out that. We can out that.
I just turned up.
And I would just say, anybody that know my plans, I shoot it after I tell them. So as I tell you, yeah, man, I look into got 1,000 star destroyers, and I can put them planet killing weapons on them, and I do anything now. I said, that's a good plan, Palpatine. I would always here to serve you. Oh no, I just want to get all my job. Pop, you dead. Get rid of you. But no, this man ain't learned nothing over the length and breadth of 50 years of content for Star Wars. This man learned nothing. I just, to me.
What a turn out, Lady Headless Horseman.
Yeah, you pop up. Like a fresh coal. You just pop up like, hey, look at me. Yeah, remember cloning? Ha, kiki. And then when's the explanation? All right. You pop up here, pal. What's going on? It's about, the dark side is a path to many abilities. Remember that one line? So you could harken back to one line, but you can't harken back to cloning as a thing. Like, I got a problem with it. Star Wars is a beloved franchise, and that's why I'm so heated. I think they need to take a break, and I'm glad they're doing that. I think they need to come up with a cohesive story and a why they can't do like a Infinity Saga type book or roadmap for the next set of Star Wars movies. Be consistent. Be consistently bad or consistently good, but be consistent. That's what we're begging for right now. And let it be a Star Wars movie and not an anthology movie of Star Wars properties, because that's essentially what it was. Hey, remember this? Lightsaber. Hey, remember that? Jedi. Hey, remember that? Stormtrooper. No. And I think that's the general feeling of why people are so upset with Star Wars. Anyhow, Mark. We've gone on for nearly 50 minutes. So just let the people know how, when, and where, what's going on. I'll just close you out.
Took me 3 episodes, but I got him to rant. You're welcome. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content coming. As I said, we're trying a little something different, trying to be a little more consistent with the uploads. And again, always be respectful in the comments. Let me know how you feel. Are you a Star Wars fan? Did you always hate it? Let us know. We want the engagement. And as always, be respectful, because we know enough.
May the Force be with you.